As soon as my weight training starts to get in the way of my martial arts training, that's a bummer for me because that's the goal. That's where I want to spend my time and that's where I want to spend my energy. Instead of just doing a classic bench press, we do something called a pin press in our gym. That's where the bar's kind of trapped on top of you. You get underneath it and then you have to rip it off of you. So it creates this cool feedback system where we get to keep trying to best ourselves and beat ourselves to keep driving that improvement. All right, welcome everybody. My name's Ben, one of the co-founders of Arts of Strength, and welcome to your basic how-to video on putting together a strength training program. The reason we put this on is in my life I have found a huge barrier of entry for people in thinking that strength training needs to be something that's really complicated or proprietary, that there's some sort of secret formula, and I'm kind of here to debunk that. I want to present a very simple, easy to access way that you can do this all by yourself and put together a really effective training protocol. A little bit about myself. I've been a fitness junkie my whole life. I was a young athlete in martial arts and swimming, and I've always been very passionate about fitness and then sharing that with people. And then once I became a gym owner, that became a core foundation of who I am, and I've invested all of my time and energy into learning how to train people in the gym. What's unique about that is we train in an athletic context, right? We are a fight gym. Just like the folks who are watching this, you're probably interested in martial arts. That's why you're here. So our training methodology is meant to supplement your athletic endeavors, right? It's not meant to be good at a gym person like the art of bodybuilding or powerlifting where it's all about the gym. It's how do I train so then I can go have a functional life in the things that I care about, whether that's martial arts training, different sports, or just having a healthy existence. What I want for you is to be able to take this format and then be able to plug and play infinite different options so that you kind of have this infinite workout template that you can follow forever with ever having to go to anyone else or dive too deep into the weeds of strength and conditioning. Once you understand this, you're going to be able to train forever. All right. The first thing I need everybody to know is that there is not one right way to train. So many times people think that they need to find the one special program that's going to set them above and beyond everything else. And we are not claiming to have that one program. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of different right ways to go about training. This is not the only right way, it's a right way. It is an option. So as you're getting into this and you're debating how you're going to start training, don't get in your head that it has to be perfect. One really important thing is that a non-optimal program that you actually do is going to be better than an optimal program that you never actually participate in, right? So make sure when you're writing this and you're setting this up, you're paying attention to things you have access to and the things you'll actually follow through on doing. So that's really, really important. Let's get into the actual nuts and bolts of how this program works. So we do our training on a 4-day split. This is based on something called the conjugate program. It was invented by a man named Louis Simmons. I'm not taking any credit for putting this together. This is borrowed from a lot of people much smarter than me. He originally started with developing a powerlifting program. However, he quickly moved into athletes, both football and a lot of combat athletes, understanding that his breakdown of how he splits apart a week of training becomes really, really productive for two reasons. It addresses the need for athleticism as well as it does not beat up the athlete. A big thing you're going to run into, and the reason you're probably here, is that strength training is not your thing. It's not your favorite thing. It's not the thing you're trying to get after, right? You're probably here because you're interested in some sort of form of combat sports, whether that be boxing, Muay Thai, or probably jiu-jitsu like us. What that means is that's the thing, right? That's the thing we're trying to get good at, and that's where we want to pour our energy and our passion. This is meant to be a supplement for that, a helpful one and what we believe to be a necessary one, but not something that's going to get in the way or detract because you feel so beat up and so sore and so tired. So the idea with this program is it's going to address athleticism, and it's also going to allow you to train where you want more intentionally and more intensely. Okay? So let's get into this. We're talking about a 4-day split. 4-day split. What we suggest is 1 day on, 1 day off, 1 day on, 1 day off, and then 2 days of work at the end, followed by a final rest day. Okay? However, that is not going to make or break the efficiency of the program so long as you're able to get 4 different days of training in. Okay? So if you're looking here, I obviously have it written day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. What we're going to focus on first is day 1 and day 2. These days are structured almost identically, with the one difference being we have a lower body day and we have an upper body day. But the main focus of these first 2 workouts is going to be what we call a maximum effort. What that means is the lifting is going to be testing your capacity of how much you're able to lift, which we'll get a little bit more detail in a second. The goal with that, and why that's so important to do on 2 different days, is we have to address this idea of what we call absolute strength. As an athlete, we have to be getting stronger, our ability to produce force, so that we can actually perform better on the field or the mats or whatever we're trying to accomplish, right? So with that being said, if we are not using the barbell to test our end range of ability or our absolute strength, then we're not going to be progressing and actually getting stronger. We might get bigger muscles, might look better naked, but what's the actual goal is to actually be stronger. So we have to test absolute strength. Now, a very important caveat to that. You're going to hear this term, we're going to max out 2 days a week. Now, based on where you get your information or what you've heard in the past, that might sound like a negative thing or something that's asking for injury. So, very important asterisk. When we say max out, we are not talking about selling your soul or putting yourself in danger or pushing so hard that you're going outside of good technique or anything like that. Those are obviously stupid decisions, and we recommend you make sure you don't do that. So when we use the term max out, we're talking about finding your top set of the day as heavy as you can go inside of parameters of good movement mechanics, safety, and also taking into account how you're feeling that day. Things like sleep, nutrition, all those other things. So we'll use the term max out, but understand that you're not going to, quote unquote, sell your soul to get there. It's a daily max, what you're capable of that particular day. Here's what I do, is when I'm putting together my decision of what movement to do, I'm going to do the exact same workout for 3 weeks in a row. 3 weeks in a row. The only thing I'm going to change is whether I do a 5 rep, a 3 rep, or a 1 rep max. Let's use deadlift as an example. So let's say I'm working on my conventional deadlift for my max effort lower body day. So on week 1, I'm going to find a 5 rep max. So that's doing 5s over and over again until I find my top set. The following week, I'm going to do the same movement, but I'm going to do 3s. So now, as my body adapts, that's going to give me the opportunity, because it's less reps, I'm going to be able to go a little bit heavier and test the absolute strength even more. And then you can see where this is going. On week 3, I do the exact same workout again, but I do a 1 rep max. As far as the second half of the workout goes, the auxiliaries, you can keep those exactly the same. There's this idea out there that every workout has to be fresh or different, this idea of muscle confusion, and to put it blatantly, that's very misleading. We need to repeat movements for our body to adapt to them. So if I'm doing the same workout for 3 weeks in a row, I'm actually going to get more benefit or more progress out of that. Especially if I'm able to track and measure those things and then maybe push how much weight I'm doing or maybe add a few more reps, then we're actually going to get to see that tangible progress. Okay? We look at day 2. Let's say I'm training my bench press. Same thing. Week 1, I'll do a 5 rep max. Week 2, I'll do a 3 rep. Week 3, I'll do a 1 rep. Keep the auxiliaries the same. Maybe challenge the weight. Maybe up your reps a little bit in there. Okay? Again, like I mentioned this earlier briefly, the suggestion would be in between these 2 days, because I'm lifting so heavy, we want to throw a break day. So day 1, we max out. Technically, day 2 would be right in here. That'd be a rest day. Then we'd be performing the max effort upper body. All right? Moving on. We're going to take a look at the second half of the program, which is something that we call dynamic effort. So we go lower, upper, then we repeat it. We go lower, upper. The emphasis is going to change. We're lifting as heavy as possible over here. Now our focus is going to be on quote-unquote athleticism or speed or power development. So over here, we were doing a 5 rep, a 3 rep, or a 1 rep max. Now over here, what we're going to do is we're going to pick our movement, and then we're going to be doing either 10 sets of 3 or 5 sets of 5. There's a lot more options that you could pick with that, but to keep it simple, you could just play around with these two. 10 sets of 3, 5 sets of 5. This might seem like a lot of sets, but the idea, if I'm trying to be athletic and develop power, is I need to keep the volume per set, so how many reps I'm doing, relatively low. That way I'm able to keep moving fast, I'm able to keep my focus on the movement, and stay intentional with power development. But I need volume, so that means we have to do more sets. So your more classic bodybuilding workout or your kind of classic gym workout might be the opposite. It would be 3 sets of 10, which still gets us 30 reps. But when I'm doing 10 of something, we can kind of get into a lull or maybe space out, and it's harder to be fast and explosive. So we flip it. We do 10 sets, 3 reps, and typically we'll control for time. What that means is I'll set a clock. I'll set a 1-minute timer. At the start of every minute, I'm going to complete my 3 reps. Repeat 10 times, bada bing, bada boom, you're done. You do the exact same thing with 5s. Okay, so here we're looking at about 30 reps, here we're looking at about 25 reps. Not that big of a difference. Keep it simple. After that, very similar process over here. I'm just going to pick some more movements that support. So let's say I'm doing squats here, I'm going to focus on lower. So maybe I'm doing some kettlebell swings, some box jumps, maybe a ball toss or something like that. The reason I pick those is, remember the emphasis of these second days are explosive athletic development. So instead of more controlled muscle developing movements, we're going to think about things athletic, explosive, jumping, high intensity, speed oriented type things. On these days, when it comes to volume, get after it. If you have the time, do it. So over here we were saying maybe just 3 sets, 10 reps, keep it really short. Over here maybe you're doing 5 sets of 15 reps or whatever capacity your schedule is going to allow for. This is a safe time to really push the volume of your training. As you can imagine, day 4 is going to be the exact same type of thing, but we're going to be focusing on upper body. So let me run through an example real quick. Let's say I'm doing my dynamic effort, lower body. Again, we're working on deadlifts. So I could deadlift about 400 pounds. I'm going to drop this intensity to about 50 to 70%. So we'll say I put 225 on the bar, something that's relatively light for me. I'm going to set a timer for a minute. I'm going to do 3 reps focusing on speed. So instead of grinding it out, I'm being intentional. I'm trying to get to the top of the rep fast for every single rep. I do my 10 sets of 3. I'm going to get to my auxiliaries, and I'm going to pick heavy kettlebell swings, box jumps, and single leg hop for a distance. I'm going to do 5 rounds, 15 reps of everything. And then bada bing, bada boom, there's my workout. I'm done with that. An example, day 4. We're going to set it up exactly the same, but upper body. So we're thinking explosive upper body movement. We're going to go with a push press. That's where we have the barbell on our chest, and we're using our legs to heave it up. Same thing, I'm going to find about 50 to 70% of what I'm capable of, set a timer for a minute. I'm going to knock out 10 sets, 3 reps. Then I go into my circuit training. I'm going to pick 3 movements that support the upper body that are explosive. Ball toss, maybe a ball slam straight down, plyo push-ups. Maybe it's more push press overhead. The options are endless. And then again, we're going to do maybe 5 sets, 15 reps, and then just like that, we have our whole week of training. Why? Why do it this way? I mentioned this briefly. What this program does is it splits our training into 2 emphases. Something that we call absolute strength, and something that I call applied strength or power endurance. These are loose terms. You can call it whatever you want. As an athlete, we need to be strong. Our body needs to be capable of producing force. Duh. However, if I only ever train absolute strength, we miss the opportunity to do what's called applied strength. That means I have to be able to use my strength in context. Right? If I'm really, really strong at deadlift, but I can't jump on a box, I can't use my body to complete a task, well then I'm not going to be a very good athlete. Right? So what this program does is it covers all of our bases. It allows us to build absolute strength. We're getting stronger. And on a side note, as a combat athlete, a lot of times we have to pay attention to our body mass, our weight. When we focus on absolute strength instead of bodybuilding, that allows us to control our weight class. I can get stronger without getting bigger. That's something that we can account for here. So the program allows us to build absolute strength, stay inside of our weight class, but then on the second half of the week, we're able to tune into our sport. How am I trying to use these movements to better my jiu-jitsu game or my striking game or whatever I'm trying to accomplish? So over here with these speed efforts, the idea with power is accomplishing a task inside of a certain amount of time. So it's not just how much I can deadlift, but how much can I deadlift while moving quickly? Or how much can I squat while exploding and accelerating to the top? Or instead of just doing a classic bench press, we do something called a pin press in our gym. That's where the bar's kind of trapped on top of you. You get underneath it, and then you have to rip it off of you. That, if you're a jiu-jitsu player, you can picture being pinned under someone and having to apply force from ground zero. That's really, really key when we're an athlete of how we can effectively train our strength training, covering getting strong, but then actually being able to use that strength on the mat or on the field or wherever we might need to be. Now, let's talk about movement selection. At the end of the day, like I said, you don't have to overcomplicate this. The things that are common and popular are that way for a reason. It's because they're effective. So if I'm really just sticking with back squats, deadlifts, bench press, overhead press, pull-ups, and I'm just cycling those movements, you can get really, really far with just the bare bones basics. Okay, so don't be over-analyzing, creating complicated movements just because you saw it on Instagram and it looks sexy. The basics are the basics for a reason. With that being said, if I'm a jiu-jitsu athlete, I'm a striking athlete, there are certain decisions we can make that are going to optimize or push us the right direction just a little bit so that we get good above and beyond at our sport. For example, if you've ever done jiu-jitsu, which I'm assuming you have if you're here at this video, there's a really common move, barbell hip thrust, right? The bar's on our hips and we're using our glutes to drive up and over. If you've ever been pinned in mount, well then you can see that's the exact movement that we need where we're trapping somebody when they're on top of us and we're using our hips to generate force to get someone off of us. So obviously that's a movement that we would want to include often. We train something called Zercher holds. That's where you take a barbell and you scoop it into your grip like this. Again, with the grappling context in mind, we find ourselves tied up with someone where we have to lift and pull up. So that movement makes a lot of sense for us at our gym, something that we train frequently because it applies to the sports that we're training. If I'm a striker, when I'm working my auxiliaries, I probably want to be doing some form of rotational throws to mimic that motion of a punch. Or maybe sledgehammers or mace movements to get rotational force and rotational torque development. I'm going to give you guys a little bit more information about how to select these movements to make your life as easy as possible. This is literally what I do. Whenever I'm programming for the gym, for the app that we have, I keep it very, very simple, and I rotate between two things per body part. So I rotate between two things for the legs, and I rotate between two things for the upper body. Looking at max effort, I will pick a squat variation. Back squat, front squat, overhead squat, Zercher squat, pin squats, the list goes on and on. If you don't feel like you have that information, it's right at your fingertips on your phone. You can always just Google squat variation. I'm going to pick one of those. Let's say I pick a front squat. I'm going to repeat it for 3 weeks. 5 rep, 3 rep, 1 rep, just like we talked about. Then my next 3-week cycle, I'm going to switch from a squat variation to a deadlift variation. Say I pick sumo deadlifts. I'm going to do a 5, a 3, and then a 1 over the course of 3 weeks. Then guess what? I'm going to go back to squat variation. Pick a new type of squat. And then I'm just going to repeat this in 3-week waves at infinitum. Literally, you can do this forever and just continually sub out the movements and never have to restructure your program. And you will continue to make progress. I guarantee it. For the upper body, I alternate between press variations and pull variations. So for 3 weeks, I'll do a press. Let's say I pick strict press. Standing, driving the barbell overhead. I do a 5, I do a 3, I do a 1. From week to week to week. Then I'll switch to a pull variation. I'm do weighted pull-ups. got the weight belt, throw the kettlebell on, I keep adding heavier kettlebells for a 5, then a 3, then a 1. Then guess what? I go back to press, then I go back to pull. I go back to press, and I go back to pull. Do this forever. Now, if you want a lot of balance, you want to add a little finesse to your programming, your lower body days inside of a given week will complement each other. Over here, if I'm doing a squat variation on my second lower body day for my power development day, I'm going to do a deadlift variation. So that way inside of the week, I'm getting both options, one focusing on quad and knee, one focusing on glute and hip. Then after 3 weeks, when this one switches to deadlift, this one switches to squat, so it stays balanced. And then you guessed it, same thing for the upper body. If I'm focusing a press variation for my max effort, I'm going to focus on a pull variation for my dynamic effort. And then after 3 weeks, they flip-flop back and forth. For me, this creates a very balanced week. Make sure I cover all my bases. And most important, this is really important to me, is I don't get super sore and I don't get super beat up. Because as soon as my weight training starts to get in the way of my martial arts training, that's a bummer for me because that's the goal. That's where I want to spend my time and that's where I want to spend my energy. So when I have these variations and these complements throughout the week, it allows my body to not get too beat up so I can spend all my energy and all my effort where I want it to be. Okay, last piece of the puzzle is there has to be an element of tracking and self-competition. What I mean by that is I need to pay attention to what weights I'm lifting, and then on a micro scale, so from week to week, I need to make sure that my 3 rep is beating my 5 rep, my 1 rep is beating my 3 rep, right? You need to be getting stronger as the reps go down. That's just a good self-accountability, a self-check thing to make sure you're moving in the right direction from week to week. On a macro scale, on a big scale, eventually you will run out of movements and eventually you will repeat a max effort of a movement, right? Even if it's a year later. It's very important that you have data to see if you're getting stronger. If today I did a 5 rep max front squat and then 1 year from today I did a 5 rep max front squat and I was weaker, well then I would need to look at my training and go, okay, something is not working. And that is important data to get back. But that means I have to have the data. So in some form or fashion, you need to be logging and tracking what you're doing, even if it's just a notebook. Make sure you're keeping track of all this different information and data for accountability purposes and for self-coaching purposes so that you can progress. Right, week to week over here on dynamic effort, I do a 10x3 at 135 for speed back squats. Well, next week I should probably bump that to 155. Then the week after that, I need to bump that to 175. I need to know those numbers. And then the next time I do speed back squats, I need to know, well, I did 135 last time at the start of the cycle, so I want to try to beat that. So again, we need to collect data so that you have opportunities to know if your training's working. If you're not getting stronger, why the fuck are we doing it? We need the data to know that it's working and to have that positive feedback. Plus, it feels good to know that my max deadlift is 100 pounds stronger than when I started. That is the motivation piece that's going to keep fueling the fire and give you that taste to keep improving and keep chasing those, sorry to say it, gains. Not so shameless plug. That is a big reason why we have the Arts of Strength app, because inside of a controlled format, it logs and saves everything for you. So, you finish your workout, you punch in your numbers in this really easy to use format. And then next time I see that movement, whether it's a year later, whether it's a month later, it pops up and says, hey, last time you did this, you got 135. So now oh, cool, that's what I got last time. I know what I'm going to try to beat this time. That's really the whole point of why we created Arts of Strength. It's a relentless pursuit of greatness. And that's, of course we want to beat our friends on the mat. We want to tap them out. We want to get more submissions. We want to win the tournament. But really what we're passionate about and what this whole thing is for is taking responsibility for our training and making sure that it's actually driving us somewhere, right? We need to have a goal. We need to have a target to aim for. Otherwise, we're kind of just rolling around in the dirt. So our gift to you, this free program. You can take this, and I promise you can use this infinitely forever and just continually cycle out movements. This has worked for me for I've been running it for almost 5 years, and it's continually gotten me stronger, both in the gym and on the mat. If you're feeling an intimidation factor about movement selections, about tracking, about volume control, all those type of things, well, guess what? We got you. The Arts of Strength app is designed to account for all those things, to track all those things, and make those decisions for you. So again, you can spend your energy where it matters most, whether that's training on the mats, with your family, whatever your priorities are, and then we'll take care of the rest for you. Thanks for sticking with us through the whole video. I love getting to talk about this. It's a big passion of mine. We hope to continue to connect with you guys, and we look forward to seeing you inside of the Arts of Strength community. See you guys next time. Chill. Yeah.